The mystery of the missing money. How long does a cashier's check take to clear at Capital One? Ever been in a situation where you need to pay someone a hefty sum, but handing over a wad of cash feels sketchy? That's where cashier's checks come in, a guaranteed payment method backed by the bank. But how long does it take for that guaranteed payment to actually reflect in your account? Especially if you're depositing it at Capital One? Let's face it, waiting around for funds to clear can be a pain. Especially when you're counting on that money for a rent payment, a car down payment, or maybe even that dream vacation. So, if you've recently deposited a cashier's check at Capital One, you might be wondering, when will I finally have access to that money? Well, fret no more. In this video, we'll crack the code on Capital One's cashier's check clearing times and shed some light on this financial mystery. Now, before we dive in, it's important to understand the difference between a regular check and a cashier's check. A regular check relies on the drawer, the person writing the check, having sufficient funds in their account. Bounced checks are a nightmare, right? But a cashier's check is basically a prepaid guarantee. When you buy a cashier's check, the bank sets aside the funds from your account, essentially guaranteeing the recipient will receive the money. So, with that added layer of security, you might think the funds would be available immediately. But hold on to your hats, because the answer isn't quite that simple. Here's the deal. Capital One, like most banks, follows certain procedures to verify the legitimacy of the cashier's check before making the funds available in your account. This verification process can take some time, depending on a few factors. Firstly, where did the cashier's check come from? If it was drawn on a Capital One account, that's good news. Capital One can typically verify those checks much faster, often making the funds available by the next business day. However, if the cashier's check was issued by a different bank, things get a bit trickier. Capital One needs to electronically contact the issuing bank to confirm the check's validity. This additional step can add some wait time. In these cases, Capital One typically allows access to a portion of the funds, often around $200, the next business day after the deposit. The remaining amount might take an additional 1 to 2 business days to fully clear. Now, there are a couple of other factors that can influence clearing times. For example, the size of the cashier's check. Deposits exceeding a certain amount, often around $5,525, may be subject to longer holds as an extra security measure. Another factor is how you make the deposit. Deposits made in person at a Capital One branch tend to clear faster than mobile deposits. While mobile deposits offer convenience, they might take an additional business day or 2 to process. Here's a quick recap. Cashier's checks drawn on Capital One accounts typically clear by the next business day. Cashier's checks from other banks can take 1 to 2 business days to clear, with a possibility of a partial early access. Larger checks or mobile deposits might experience slightly longer hold times. Remember, these are just general guidelines. It's always best to check with your local Capital One branch for the most accurate information on your specific situation. You can also check Capital One's online resources for their official deposit availability policy. By understanding these factors and Capital One's typical processing times, you can avoid any unnecessary financial anxiety. No more wondering where your money went. You'll know exactly when to expect those funds to be accessible. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.